And a very good evening, everybody. Welcome into your box seat. Brought you to you in association, of course, with Sweet Lou standing at Woodlands. Michael, it's been a very, very busy week in harness race. We've got plenty to talk about and, of course, a decent meeting at Addington this week, highlighted by an outstanding race, the Superstars. Yeah, Greg, and so much to look forward to now from the things we've seen or are being teased to see coming up. And shock defeat last week of Ultimate Sniper. Does it open up the Derby for the following week? Horses who we haven't seen for a while or have never seen racing each other. That's coming up next week. But last week's story of the harness racing week wasn't about a winner, Greg. It was about a loser, which probably felt like a winner to the connections. Yeah, it certainly did on track. More about that shortly. What about Friday week ago? The sponsors of the show, of course, are Woodlands, and Stacey Markham, now Stacey White, did this. Got married to David White, the Australian, of course, who... Yeah, it's a terrific photo. Congratulations to them both on picking that just out of Methven, not too far from there. I know Mark Mack was part of the MC crew there. Was he the page boy? Well, he quite possibly could have been. But, yeah, David drives All About Henry and a few others for Derek and Adele Jones. And good fella, and Stacey's obviously a great supporter of our show, so well done to you both. Isn't it funny? There's a lot of racing weddings on Fridays. Yeah. Because people don't have them on Saturday so they can still go to work. Yeah, exactly. I don't think it happens in other industries. Congratulations to you, Stacey. Let's have a look at what's on your show tonight. And we have the Oaks, the Trotting Oaks from Addington last Friday night. We'll talk plenty about that. Jesse Duke just continues to fly, and a lot about leading forward to the Derby in a couple of weeks' time. We've got a whole lot of stuff to get through, Michael. We've got a massive win by horse by 8.5 lengths, some milestones. Stephen Reid will join us to wrap up Utmost Delight and her career, and we'll get to the brand beat at the end, which of course is the tipping competition. But to Addington Raceway, Friday night, this was the Stora Motors New Zealand Trotting Oaks. In front, Gavin Smith went for home, but things changed dramatically about 50 metres later.
Then Majestic, Chevron and Overzealous. The leader is Swiss Miss. A length and a half clear. Majestic, Chevron, Cheerful. Overzealous are on the inside. The leader is Cheerful again. The little grey Overzealous is ahead away. Cheerful just in front. Overzealous is coming. No! Cheerful has just beaten Overzealous. The racing gods, they were smiling, but just not enough to get the little grey home.
Well, Mark, that wasn't easy. She was a bit rank in the warm-up. You had a bit of work to sort out there, and gee, she had a pretty tough run tonight, but she was brave. And she was brave, Greg, and the false start didn't help her, and I was just forced to let her run early and try and take a little bit of the sting out of her, and she didn't settle that great, but yeah, she was brave to the end. Mark, I don't know if you noticed, but there was an enormous roar as you got to the line. Probably wasn't for you, to be fair. It was more for Overzealous, who of course we know was involved in that horrific accident with Pete and Margot, and to beat a horse like that, I mean, it must give you a great thrill as well, because Pete's one of the great guys. Yeah, certainly he is, and would have been a great tonic for him and Margot, but anyway, maybe next week. Right, what do we do with Cheerful? She's got a couple of the fillies races to come. I'm not sure whether we'll take on the Derby yet or not. Probably not. But,
Yeah, you'd imagine that she wouldn't take on the Derby, unlike Luby Lou, who last year did that, went on and won the Derby. In fact, there's been a couple that have done it. Escapee's another one that comes to mind. Yeah, the Derby's going to be a lot stronger, isn't it? We see Enhance Your Calm, her stablemate, back this week in a Sire Stakes prelude, and I think they're a good bunch of fillies, but I think it's a very strong 3-year-old crop. But away from her, the story of the race was the little grey horse on the inside, and Greg, you know the story better than I. Really good call from Mark McNamara to make that part of his finish, because it added to the story of the race. And instantly, while I was thinking, oh, it would have been nice for them to win, the immediate aftermath engendered emotion in me, which, without being horrible to cheer for, its connections, and congratulations to them, that didn't engender any emotion in me. I was like, okay, that's cool, nice filly won. The story about the second horse was the story there. For those who don't watch a lot of harness racing, Greg, or don't know, can you explain it to us a bit more? Well, that's me on the phone talking to Peter Davis. It's Margot 9 on the right there. She said, here, have a chat to Pete. I ran into her, obviously, post-race, and Blair Orange having a chat as well. And that was the general consensus around the place. They were just delighted, because whilst we're talking about the humane side of things, Overzealous was on the bottom of that truck that we showed you those horrific photos of, and had to be manned manhandled.
So just for people who don't know,
Yep,
of course,
they had a
because
bad
obviously we have
accident.
Australian viewers and we have some galloping people who don't watch it a lot. So Margot and Peter were going to the races,
Yep.
and they had a crash, and
that horse was part of the crash.
Float was basically demolished.
That's right.
And that horse was
Yep.
at the bottom.
Was
of the
at the
float.
bottom of it, and had
that
to
was
be
what, 6 or 8 weeks ago.
Yep, that's right. Had to be lifted out of the horse float.
Wow.
And has bounced back to do that, and was unlucky. BK Dover unfortunately stopped in front of it, had to ease out and get around it. Cheerful obviously handed up the lead to Swiss Miss at about the 600 metre mark. You probably thought she was under pressure, and she's fought back, and then Overzealous has got to her inside.
So Margot's wearing a cast there.
That's right.
What's let's Pete in?
Yeah, well, that's right. Let's hear from Margot. Had the opportunity to catch up with her and give you an update on where they're both at.
Margot, we don't often hear a roar like that for a horse that just got beaten in a group race, but for your horse Overzealous, there were plenty of emotions involved in that.
Yeah, no, she's lucky to even be here, like given the events of 6 weeks ago, and she was on the truck, and actually Kevin McClintock just came up to me after the race, and he was one of the first there obviously, and he said she was actually manhandled off the truck, like they had to lift her off the truck, so he just couldn't even believe she's here.
Yeah, a remarkable performance by her, and she didn't have a lot of favours tonight either. She got carted back at the wrong time, but I reckon there might have been a bloke driving her on the couch and getting her that close to win. This will be a huge fill-up for not only you, but obviously Pete.
Yeah, no, Pete, well, actually I think Pete's like something like, oh, well, it could have been, but no, she's gone fantastic, and yeah, no, he'll be thrilled. I said, hey, you would have felt a bit funny if we won a group race and you're sitting on the couch, not in the seat, so he's like, well, yeah, that's true, so...
How are things at home? Give us an update from your perspective. Clearly your hand and your arm's on the mend, but there's still a few challenges ahead.
Actually, Pete, they're really happy. He went to Burwood last week for x-rays, and the surgeon, after he's seen the x-rays, said, well, you can actually start weaning the back and neck brace off in a week's time. So yeah, he's miles ahead of schedule, so yeah, things are looking pretty good. Then of course he's got to start the rehabilitation, and his neck muscles are going to have wasted away and everything, so I mean, but hey, he's still miles ahead of schedule, so that's great.
That's typical of you. You'd start talking about other people and horses before you talk about yourself. How are you getting on?
You know, pretty good. I got my cast off yesterday. My hand's still pretty swollen. I think we had a bit of an issue. I ended up at A&E over at Westport a couple of times because my hand's been swollen, but no, I'll get there, so...
And results like tonight are only going to, enhance the improvement and the recovery. So congratulations on the way she went, and we look forward to hearing more positive stuff. And just quickly on the people that have supported you, I know you've got a special message for them.
Yeah, everybody's just been fantastic. Like Pete's sitting at home on his ass doing nothing, but he's kind of trying to work through the give a little list, and everybody that's just been so fantastic. And he's, ringing, like I go down the stables and then go to Spain Lodge for a bit, and then he's like, oh yeah, I rung such and such, such and such. So that's good. I mean, he's getting out and talking to people and telling everybody how grateful we are for all the support we've had. It's just been unbelievable.
That it has, Margot, and thanks so much for your time there at the races the other night. It was wonderful to get that inside, and great to hear they're both well and truly on the mend.
Yeah, and sometimes the story of a race or a night isn't about people winning, because obviously they've had to overcome an enormous amount of adversity, which Cheerful probably hasn't had to overcome. So it's a great story, and I'm glad to hear Pete's getting better. It would have been a bittersweet moment for him. And what about Margot? She's gone to Westport with the horses with what appears to be a broken wrist or something like that, and had to pop into A&E. That just sums up the rustic harness racing people and how much they love their horses, Greg. It's a wonderful story. We wish them the best, and that can never be taken away from that horse. Now, that's going to be in the sales catalogue for years to come, being a filly, and in the stud book. She's ran second in the New Zealand Trotting Oaks. And let's not forget that race didn't exist 10 years ago.
No.
So it's important we have these races and the opportunity for these fillies to be retained as the trotting sale becomes stronger. But the real story was the people's story, Greg, and well done to getting it all. As I said, it makes you realise that it's not always about the best horses, because Overzealous probably isn't the best horse. But
it was a cool story, just the
story.
17th running it was of the
Trotting
Oaks.
Was it?
Yeah,
Gee,
at Group 2 level.
Been around for that long?
Yeah, it is. Amazing, isn't it? Let's go back to the start, because we did have a false start, which Mark Purdon referred to. That was, by the way, the 5th time he'd driven the winner of this. So that was Cheerful on the outside. That was She's Like the Wind. So it wound a few up. I was watching Cheerful in the warm-up, and she was getting really on the chewy. So this wouldn't have helped her at all. The other horse I wanted to mention out of this race, and I spoke to John Dunn about it this morning, Monaro Maro missed the start, was 10 lengths off them at the winning post, and ran right up behind them. I haven't seen a better performance by a horse that finished about 8th or 9th at Addington in a long, long time. So there was She's Like the Wind, doing the wrong thing there and out of play. Swiss Miss got itself back into the position it wanted to be, and she hit the lead a long way out, Swiss Miss. I spoke to Gavin Smith about that, and he said, look, I was damned if I do. I had to go when I did, otherwise the others would have gone around me, the likes of Majestic Chevron and that were moving, so she just blew out the last bit and battled on to run 4th, but she did look the winner.
She did, I agree, and she's improved enormously in the last couple of starts. The one thing I would say is that the problem for these fillies...
That's, by the way, Monaro Maro in the purple and pink there. So it was 10 lengths last at this stage, a lap ago.
That'll make it sellable, that's for sure. The problem for these fillies, Greg, is this. They only have one more Oaks. So now any racing they do is against either older horses or Enhance Your Calm and those good horses. So with the trotters, it's not as bad as the paces, because obviously the good trotting fillies can beat the pace, beat the males. We've seen it a lot over the years, Enthusiast and Luby Lou and Escapee. Yeah. So we see it a lot, but there's only one more race for the entirety of the season where they can race against the girls, unless they go to the Breeders' Crown in Australia or the Oaks over there. So that's a little bit of a problem. I understand we can't just divide the crop in half because there wouldn't be enough for a whole bunch of races, but yeah, maybe a couple of the smaller clubs. I don't see why Cambridge, for example, couldn't have a Waikato trotting Oaks.
Nothing, no reason why not.
I think there's a Northern Oaks now. Did they start a Waikato trotting Oaks last year? I think
could have done.
It would be perfect. There's no reason you couldn't do that, and there's no reason Rangiora couldn't have the North Canterbury trotting Oaks. I would like to see, because we saw there a decent sized field.
And the Southern equivalent a couple of weeks ago was outstanding, one by Swiss Miss.
And I think it gives us a real chance for these fillies to race each other, because once we see Enhance Your Calm this week, and Oscar Bonavina is injured, so that's one big boy out of the way. Once we see the boys this week, I think the girls' crop's going to look, to my eye, about 3 to 4 lengths behind them.
All right, that was at Group 2 level. Let's go to the Teltrack Communications, which again was a deep race. Here's Alta Maestro in front. This was similar to what he did as a 2-year-old, dominating from the top end. Let's see if he was good enough to hold on, and then hear from his trainer, Robert Dunn.
120 to go, leads a length on Forgotten Highway. AG's White Sox late, leader Alta Maestro. AG's White Sox the neck away. Here's the post, plunge up.
Well, that fully vindicated what you've been saying all along. He's a smarty.
Yeah, he is, Greg. I said before the race, we're wrapped the way he's changed his whole way of racing. It's hard for a horse to do that, because he was just a horse that over-raced all the time when he was young. To be able to do it now, so that's super. And had his ears pricked all the way up the straight, so we've got to teach him now to want to run away from other horses.
He didn't win by much tonight, but now you're able to go back to even using him off the gate, which I know you were reluctant to do. That just gives you so much more arsenal, doesn't it?
I think so too, and I think we'd probably put a pacemaker in behind him and make the pacemaker run alongside him, because he works by himself all the time, and that's part of why he's got so lazy and relaxed. And whilst it's good, he's still got to be able to finish it off at the other end.
Fortnight to the Easter Cup. What do you do with him between now and then? Do you just keep him ticking over?
We have to, because it's well documented he's a horse that ties up all the time, so we've got to work him virtually every day, and he thrives on it. When we go with him, he fell away a lot, Greg, and he didn't have any muscle over his back, but it's really developed. So he obviously enjoys the work, and he can take the work, which he could as a young horse too. So we'll press on that way, and we know he's a great stayer. He steps very cleanly, and I'd love to see him in front in the Easter Cup, and I'm sure he'd run some sectionals. It'd be pretty nice.
And I reckon about the Queen's birthday weekend, you'd like to see him in front in harness. Jules would be a good spot too.
Absolutely, just want a good draw. We don't draw good in the Jules normally. We haven't only won one ever, and that was from a bad draw as well. So we've got about 10 or 12 in line for the Jules this year, so we'd want some good draws, please.
Yeah, please, Robert Dunn. 9 from 29. Alta Maestro, of course, he won on show day. He won the Amberley Cup, and he dictated in front there, John Dunn, beautifully. First half, pedestrian for that grade, and then just ripped up the Addington straight. Gee, there was some good runs in behind, though.
Yeah, it looked one of those typical coming back to the races type races where a lot of horses get back and no one attacks, and he just, as you said, manipulated the race beautifully in front. They backed the horse, not saying they backed it, but somebody backed
it. Into $4.50.
Yeah, which in harness racing is probably a couple of grand of betting, which, is still not insignificant, but there was confidence from somebody. I can't work him out. He's a horse I thought as a 2-year-old was just a speedster, and I think they've had to work enormously hard to find other strings to his bow, or maybe he's just strengthened the break. I don't know what the reasons are, but there's no reason he couldn't turn up in a New Zealand Cup at some stage now. AG's White Sox was really good. Eamon Maguire was good. The only horse out of the race I wasn't sure about where he's sitting is Sheriff. I'm not sure.
I can tell you now, Sheriff's out for the season. So he won't be taking his place at Addington Raceway on Friday night. He's out for the season.
What's the issue?
Ongoing battle with his feet and just can't get on top of them. So Nigel's pulled the pin and he'll be set for the New Zealand Cup, and hopefully those feet issues will fix himself while he's out.
When you consider he was the Derby winner of last year and that national record, and what the 3-year-olds in that crop have done as 4-year-olds, we didn't see a lot of turning up, but he was one of them. Obviously Spankham, obviously Pat's Delight. They were all still part of that crop.
Yeah.
Chase Auckland. It's a real loss to have him having those issues. I hope he gets him back. Just interesting one, I was looking through the catalogue for the all-aged sales coming up for New Zealand Bloodstock Standardbred now, which is April 29 in Christchurch and May 6th in Auckland. I'm pretty sure it's a brother to this horse, Ultra Maestro, is for sale as a weanling. Now, I'm not sure why they're selling it as a weanling. Well done to them. I suppose it's 8 months less you need to hold on to them, or 9 months less, but there's a real pinhooking opportunity there. You go buy that horse, and it's an art major, and they tend to develop into nice-looking horses. It's a nice-looking family of horses, Greg. So there was actually a little bit, there's quite a few in that catalogue on the weanling side where you thought, yeah, I could see some pinhooking opportunities there. So that's May the 6th at Auckland, April 29th in Christchurch for those catalogues.
Let's move on to the 4- and 5-year-old Trotting Championship. This is the 14th running of the Lamb and Hayward. Valoria left in front. Majestic Man, could he continue on his winning way? And Winterfell got to his outside.
Majestic Man is the only danger. Sunday Sun galloped. Majestic Man has gone up to Valoria from Winterfell. It's Majestic Man in front. Margin and neck on Valoria. And it's Majestic Man for the 4- and 5-year-old. Majestic Man beat Valoria, Winterfell, Theodosia.
6 in a row. He is just winning them as he likes. He's got stronger. You go back to his 3-year-old days, and I spoke to Phil Williamson about it last night. He actually didn't win a race as a 3-year-old. Placed in the derbies, placed in the sire stakes, but clearly he's a lot stronger. His manners were beautiful there, got himself into the right spot. There were a couple who got things wrong. Obviously, One Over to Stars just continues to let her armoury of supporters down. But you can only win, and he just keeps on doing that.
Yeah, he's obviously got an open class motor. His case is really interesting for about 1,000 owners in New Zealand, and it could include you. He's by Majestic Sun. And the Majestic Suns are natural 2-year-olds, beautiful 2-year-olds, we know that. And they race at 3 well. But over the years, recently, we don't have a huge database of them, we've started to wonder whether they were any good at 4 or 5 or 6. I'm not saying they're not, but we haven't seen one punch through and be a really standout horse as an older horse. This is one of the few ones who's actually been better at 4 than 3. He's good at 3, but he's better at 4. And there's a lot of people sitting here thinking, well, what am I going to do with this Majestic Sun I've got? Is it going to be any good at 4? Well, here's some hope. Here's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow to think, OK, maybe they will make open class horses. Because at the moment we think of Love You, and eventually Muscle Hill was going to be our open class stallions, or Pegasus Spur, and we think that the Majestic Suns are the little squibs who get up and run early. But this horse would suggest that's not true, Greg. And there's a whole bunch of people out there who own Majestic Suns who are probably thinking, well, that's good.
As you saw there, the time overall wasn't quick. I think Habibdi Ivy and Royal Aspirations hold the record about 3:14.8. So
what do you make of Winterfell?
He was disappointing. I don't think there was any doubt about that at all. And saying that, I believe he can lift off that. And Mark is looking at putting both him and King's Landing in the Trotting Championship. So that'll be interesting.
It's interesting, wasn't it? Because the expectations are so high for him that anything but a win...
Well, coming off the back...
is a loss.
You thought, oh, well, he's just going to pick them up here.
But when you're a Derby winning horse like last year and you win the Jewels, people go, wow, this is an open class horse. And he's still only 4. But the last 200 I didn't like there. Either he's not fit or he's not right, and I'm thinking it's more the first thing than the second thing. But we'll find out more in the next couple of weeks.
Let's find out from Phil Williamson what he thought about that one. Philip, he just keeps on winning.
Yeah, he's been going great, and tonight was a good effort to beat Winterfell. He's always been his nemesis, so to speak, so it was great to get one back.
Look, his manners were obviously the key because he got himself into a beautiful spot early, but he's certainly developing into a really good star, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got a pretty good game about him. He kind of knows where the winning post is. Pretty tough, and can develop into probably an open class horse that would be competitive with the best ones, so we're hoping that.
Tonight was always going to be a good barometer, but you always had a plan to go to Auckland, and barring incident, that's on the radar, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, Greg. I think just education-wise, don't expect too much. I mean, anything he does already, he's done well for the year, but I think the Jules is realistic. He should be a hard horse to beat there if he can be lucky enough to score a marble, because he has pretty good gate speed. But he does like the Auckland way round, and I think just for his education, wouldn't hurt him to have a wee trip up there and have a couple of races, month between drinks for the Jules, and we'll see if we're having drinks afterwards.
Yeah, we'll see if you are. Philip, he actually said to me last night he got another idea. He thinks we should have a box seat special and do all the barrier draws for the Harness Jules live. So I'm not too sure how that's going to work, Phil, but I'll plant the seed.
It's about 120 barrier draws.
That's
That'd be even worse than the show as usual.
Anyway, Valoria great in second. Of course, the Hambo winner at 3. Sunday Sun was definitely going to be in the first 3 and 4 and had a gallop again. So.
He's in the Winterfell situation where you expect so much of him and you sort of forget he's 4 because he was good enough to win on Cup Day as a 3-year-old against older horses. So he'll work that gate out eventually, but at the moment, I don't trust him under pressure.
He just gets rocky, doesn't he?
Not punting-wise. Doesn't mean he's not anything wrong with the horse. I just don't trust him under pressure. He gets another chance this week in an interesting race against Speeding Spur. So
let's move on.
Just before, I better mention this, Greg, just with Speeding Spur, so I had a good talk to John Dickey this week in case we don't get a chance to preview it heavy enough at the back of the show. He is going to say to the stewards, we're going to go back at the start and drive the horse for luck.
Yep.
Just so people know if they're going to have $1 this week, that's important.
Would he be in his last throws, if you like? So he's got Trotting Championship,
this is the farewell,
Anzac Cup, Bro Cup.
The farewell tour.
Okay.
And this is a $14,000 race this week, leading into 3 bunches of 100,000, more or less, type races.
Yes.
So, yeah, they're going to go back at the start, drive him for luck. And for that reason, I want you to know that in case you can have a bet on Friday night.
Key lead up to the Diamond Creek Farm New Zealand Derby was the Vero Flying Stakes. 39th running of this one. 14 winners of it have gone on to win the Derby. Wow. Jesse Duke wins it, unlike its stablemate Ultimate Sniper, who was the shortest price favourite of the night.
Chiller Bay and also Dad and Dave. Jesse Duke is in front. Chiller Bay will get as close as a length, and that's as close as he got. Jesse Duke beat Chiller Bay. Dad and Dave, Memphis, Tennessee.
He's got more professional, I suppose, than what he was going to average races, wasn't he, Jesse Duke, by his high standards, but he's using his professionalism. But the real story out of the race, Michael, was the Ultimate Sniper scenario. He comes off the gate, rolls into a gallop, only beaten for the 2nd time, and once he did gallop, there was no chance he was coming back.
No, those horses who haven't galloped before, once they gallop, they tend to completely lose it, Greg, because they don't know what they're doing. I had a good talk to Marcus, I know you have, about what happened there with him. And I don't think Tim did anything wrong. He was holding on to the horse. He wasn't tapping him up or getting him unbalanced at the start. Mark said to me, I might actually go have a word to the stewards and ask if I can see the head-on footage so I can try and work out what happened. But the horse has taken no particular harm out of it. They expect to be at the Derby. It's $1.85 for the Derby, so expects to be there. Jesse Duke's an interesting one because he cost a lot of money and he looked the best of the 2-year-olds. There's still something about the horse I don't love. And it's really harsh in saying that because he's obviously a very good horse. But when you see him here...
He doesn't run away and hide, does he?
No, he doesn't. And yes, he had to work hard early. I'm not saying this is by any means potting him. I don't know, maybe because he costs so much money, you expect him to be a superstar. But I can't see the All-Stars beaten in the Derby, but I'm not sure this horse is a standout 3-year-old. I think Ultimate Sniper might go on to be a genuinely good open class horse. I don't know with this horse. And that's by no means slagging, it's just that gut instinct you get about him. By the same token, if he comes out and wins the Derby in 9 days' time, I wouldn't be stunned.
6th win in a row for the All-Stars in the Vero Flying Stakes, but we need to hear from those involved in that finish.
Well, professionalism got him home tonight.
Yeah, that's right, Greg. He's a real little tradesman and just does everything right. And a game little horse.
Look, he did a bit of work too to get the lead, and he appeared to be travelling coming off the back, and you copped a wee bit of pressure down the back, so he kicked on strongly.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he was tired the last 100, but it was still game. He was still game to the wire.
Well, in some ways that vindicated Tim Tratham taking him north because he deserved a placing in a race like that.
Yeah, no, he definitely did, Greg. I thought he actually went great up there. They went walk around in the derby and that, and I said to Tim, he's really grown a leg, you know, when he went up there. You know, I said he'll be a lot better when he comes home. The triple do him good, and it sort of proved it tonight.
Yeah, and the derby distance won't bother him at all. He's a pretty good stayer, and he'll keep finding the line.
That's his best thing, yeah. He sort of probably hasn't got the high speed that some of the others got, but he'll keep trucking.
Terry, it's never going to be a whole lot of fun out there, from barrier 9 that is, but I tell you what, he's gone a great race.
Yeah, he got left part, Greg, and he's probably not as go, he's better with cover, but I was wrapped with him tonight, and he should improve. I just need a good draw in the derby, and fingers crossed we'll be right there.
Yeah, it was tonight a barometer to see where you're at more than anything, because he's always shown the ability, but he can really step up, can't he?
Yeah, he raced sort of a fortnight ago down south, and he had 3 races in sort of 3 weeks, so I backed off him, so he's a bit underdone tonight, but no, he showed that he'll improve with that, so fingers crossed, good draw, and we'll be right there, hopefully.
Well, that can't have been a whole lot of fun 100 metres after the start.
No, that's right, Greg. Obviously, the racing gods are a funny thing, and they happen to turn at the wrong time, and you know, luckily the horse has come through it. He's okay, but like you say, he's just, for whatever reason, stepped out of it, and when he did, he gave himself a bit of a fright, and you know, he's quite a big horse, so when he did gallop in the hobbles, he sort of gave himself a bit of a fright, but you know, he followed him around afterwards, and you know, he's pulled up good, so onto the derby.
Yeah, what about pacing wise and that? He never gave you an indication he was going to do it, but after that he was fine?
No, that's right, he sort of come out on the bit. He seemed good, and you know, no excuses, but like you say, just for whatever reason he jumped out of it, and you know, that was the end of that.
And he's taken no harm from it at all. Did catch up with Blair Orange about the performance of Chiller Bay, but he had to whip out to the next race, and he said, well, he just keeps on stepping up, and it's a great story for Peter Robertson. They'll be delighted to have a runner in the derby, and we'll have a look at that market now, Michael. The other significant thing, if you've caught up with what's happened with Natalie Rasmussen, so her suspension from the Northern Derby finishes this week, so after the end of this week she's allowed to back drive, and her suspension from the Chariots of Fire will be heard on the 5th of June. I'm not too sure how that all works, how they've been able to extend it out to them, but of course that enables Natalie to drive right through to the Harness Jewels. So she'll be back on Ultimate Sniper for the Derby.
There's 2 bizarre things about that. That's an incredibly long delay for a hearing. And the second thing is, it was a nonsense decision in the first place. It just was. It was just nonsense.
How you get 8 weeks for that?
Well, she made a decision. Drivers and jockeys make decisions all the time, and sometimes they're wrong. You can't give somebody 8 weeks for making a wrong decision if it was made with no ill intent. It was a rubbish decision at the time. It's weird that it's being held over to June, but it's probably justice, to be honest, because 8 weeks in June and July probably won't affect it too much.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you make of that market? Because I'm still struggling to find a reason not to back Ultimate Machete.
Well, if he stays in his gear...
If I'm betting into that market.
Yeah, Ultimate Sniper. Well, if he stays in his gear...
I keep calling it Ultimate Machete.
If he finds the front, well, it's hard to say that any of those that finished in the top 4, Jesse Duke included, would get past him.
Oh, no doubt.
They haven't been able to in his career thus far.
You can make a strong case for having a bit of that. So Natalie will drive him, obviously.
Yes, yep, absolutely.
One thing I do want to get across here is... that was a very good example last week of if Mark and Natalie hadn't been there, poor old Tim and the staff at All Stars would have copped the slagging, because people would have said, well, they can't train and they're no good when Mark and Nat aren't there, those idiots, they ruined Ultimate Sniper. Because when Mark and Natalie are away, the horses obviously don't have that polish on them, but they were home last week, they geared the horse up. It just didn't get it right. So even the best can have things go wrong, as we saw with Smooth Deal in the Young Guns heat this week, so this season. So I'm actually quite happy, as much as I didn't back it, but I'm happy that that wasn't something which Tim was blamed for.
No.
Basically, it can happen to any horse at any time.
Of course it can.
It's happened to a lot of great horses over the history of the industry.
Short break for us here on Your Box Seat. We come back, just a couple more races to wrap from Addington and a whole lot more on Your Box Seat, of course, with Woodlands. On the undercard at Addington Race 1 Friday night was heat number 4 of the Neville Fillies series. Wainui Creek was heavily back in front, copped a little bit of pressure from Bubbled Up, but was disappointing really. Nothing's come of that performance, but Kayla Marie was just professional again.
Kendra took a gap, Bubbled Up, headed off by Kayla Marie, and then Kendra and Garter. Kayla Marie is in front, and Kayla Marie beat Garter, Kendra and Bubbled.
I think she's getting better. I think she's getting stronger. I'm not sure she's going to be up to Princess Tiffany, Greg. So questions start to come for a horse like her. You start wondering where she's going to go next. We'll talk about that in a sec, but this was almost the race of the night, and you don't often say that about the 2-year-old trotters.
No, you're not wrong. Ultimate Stride had missed the start by 5 lengths, looped them, took the lead off the previously unbeaten Muscle Mountain, and he retained that mantle by now winning 3 from 3. The son of Muscle Hill, of course, in the Cullen breeding colours there. Ben Hope being enlisted with the opportunity to drive this horse, and you're not going to be taking him off because he just keeps on winning.
Yeah, look, that was a really interesting race for what's already shaping as a good crop, but this is a horse, Greg, who's improved enormously. I know he is still relatively unknown to us. We're not sure how good he's going to be, and these horses behind him probably aren't open class horses off the same mark. Ronald J's back in the field, but it was off a stiff handicap. But just to the eye, you just loved him. I think everybody did. Anybody who saw that thought, OK, this is potentially an open class star of the future.
Yeah, well, out of Picaro, of course, who was an outstanding trotting filly, now has won 5 from 8 and just dead set bolted in here. You're right, the horses that he's beaten, Ismock's been placed in the duels, but they're not genuine open class that were on the similar mark. So I thought Ronald J's run was very good, and that's the reason I think he can win this week.
He was okay. I think Ronald J's very up and down, and his form line goes 1, 5, 1, 7, 1. All these sort of ones and zeros and stuff. It's quite weird, his form line in general, but there's no doubting his ability. That other horse, though, he had a lot of X factor there. You don't often see trotters. In fact, the last time I saw a trotter of his age beat older trotters that easily, and I went, wow. This, as an arrival statement, was when Mon Bay came back as a 4-year-old, and he came back and beat a similar type field and bolted it
and
at
beat them up.
And you sort of went, wow. Just going back to Kayla Marie, this is interesting. And by the way, well done to Linda Van Beek, our guest selector. She picked Kayla Marie last week, so she jumped enormously up our leaderboard. Interesting time for that horse, because she's good enough to run a place in the Oaks or the Neville Fillies final. But is she good enough to beat Princess Tiffany and Bella Montana, to a lesser degree Best Western? Wainui Creek, I've got no idea where she's at the moment. So if you had her, if you had Kayla Marie, if you owned her, would you send her to the Victoria Oaks for 150k, where there's no Princess Tiffany? 2 weeks after that, or a week after that, one or the other, is the WA Oaks for 100 or 150. Again, no Princess Tiffany. You're racing Drakkar race is potentially the favourite for those races. A lot of people don't like doing that, Greg, because you're racing away from home and it's not sexy and you don't get to turn up yourself. Gee, that'd be tempting.
It would be tempting.
Gee, it'd be tempting.
The New Zealand Oaks nominations closed last week, and there are 37 headed up by Princess Tiffany, Bella Montana, Kayla Marie, Wainui Creek, Kendra. They're the top 5. Lady Cherokee, of course, got beaten in the Northern Oaks. She'd previously won 3 from 3. For Todd Mitchell. It's a decent bunch, but right up the top there, those top 2 have dominated.
So what would you do? Would you send Kayla Marie to Australia and try and take on the non-Princess Tiffany's? Because you win a Group 1 in Australia, you come back to the sales and your broodmare career just is
But she's already won a Group 1 as a 2-year-old.
But one in Australia is enormous, because then the Australian buyers come across. If you said to most people in Australia, who's Kayla Marie, and harness racing people, they'd have no idea. But she wins the Victoria Oaks for the next 20 years. Her foals or her daughter's foals that go to the sales, people go, oh,
it's tempting.
What about that? I'd do it.
Okay.
I would absolutely do it, because we've seen a history of that. Our dominant fillies tend to dominate at the very highest level. Our 3-year-old dominant fillies dominate. Now, I don't think she can beat Princess Tiffany. I've not seen
not on the New South Wales Oaks form.
Exactly. No. So why bother sticking around? I'd send her to Australia.
This horse could pretty much go anywhere. We had Mile Day, of course, the Wairio Club at Winton. You need to look back in the field here. We've got a rather large hand to point out where You May Collect is. 152.1 have a look when Kirsten Barclay says, righto boy, let's go now.
They run inside the 500 metres. Then came the White Rabbit on the outside. You May Collect is starting to boom around them. 3 wide at the 400 metres. Vin Scully tries to go with it as well. And back in behind those to Lilac Flash and Calico Hill. Homeward bound here, and You May Collect gives them a lesson. It's just blowing on by and off and gone. He's away by 4 lengths here, You May Collect. The bullpen heads the chase. Outstanding. Down towards the line, You May Collect wins it by, guess, maybe 8. The bullpen...
So he's a 5-year-old boy, Gotta Go Collect, out of a mare called Ides of May. Now, this is the family of Wahaka Lass. Did Wahaka Lass win a New South Wales Oaks? I think she did, yeah. Yeah, so it's a deep, deep family, and obviously he's taken time. There's Kirsten. She said, I've driven open class horses and they don't feel like that. So there's Tom Kilkelly's colours there. He's obviously been a trainer for a long time, owns this one. He's got a massive motor, hasn't he?
I loved Gotta Go Collect as a horse. He won 5 of 9 and he beat and raced against some very good horses, like horses who won the jewels, like Tintin America and Highview Tommy. That's the closest thing I've seen him produce to himself. Very similar way of going, quite a high knee lift, very efficient gait, there's no hitches in it. He was that sort of horse. He was obviously beautifully bred by Christian Cullen out of Elect to Live, who won the Australian Derby when it's held in Tasmania. That's the closest thing I've seen to him. And I know it's easy to get carried away with Southland form on a Saturday afternoon. But the times, his pacing style would suggest he's an open class horse, Greg. The problem is you then ask yourself, can I train this horse out of Southland to its full potential? That's not saying it can't be done, but it's an incredibly hard thing to do. So
it'd be worth a lot of money.
Oh, well, if he was 3 or 4, he'd be worth a fortune.
Unbelievable.
5 he's worth less, but man, they'll have some fun with them. Well done to Tom. It's not an easy thing to do to get those sort of horses. I think he only paid
bought them out of the weanling sale.
$5,500 the weanling sale. So good on you. As I said, that wet weanling sale doesn't have the sexiness of the yearling sale, but there'll be some good.
And they've waited. Let's be fair, they've waited a wee while.
If it was a weanling, they've waited for 4.5 years.
Exactly. Let's go across the Tasman. Kiwi success over there. Before we get to that, McLovin did this, now 5 from 6. The only failure came in the Grand Prix at Group 1 level, but look, he just won again.
And he's coming to the Anzac Cup and the Rowe Cup. So Anzac Cup and Rowe Cup against Marcoola, Monbay, Speeding Spur, Le Monde, Temporale, King's Landing, Winterfell and this fella. All of a sudden we have a very serious couple of trotting races coming up at the Carnival, and of course minus him at Addington for the Trot Championship next week.
Step Up, big move to go across here, and well, she won the Jodie's Babe and did a great job. Showed good early speed. She'd come out of the Breeders and Premier Mares where she'd been placed. She'd been placed at those 2 meetings in March at Auckland, and she did this. Yeah, and some of the better mares in Australia have had their issues. Some have been retired, the likes of Golden Goddess type horses. Lovely placement. Steve Telfer is very good at spotting where to pit his horses, and he's not scared to travel with them. So that's a lovely bit of placement for her, because again, you're embellishing her broodmare value in the future, because Australian buyers will come to New Zealand and go, oh yeah, she was a good horse. I'll tell you who else won really good. I think it was the Melton Plate, Duke of Wellington.
Yeah, former Southland horse.
Yeah, Lauren Pearson had him down there.
He ran 3rd behind Posterboy and Spankham, which now looks almost the form of the season race in the Bonanza. Yeah. So, and Pat's Delight ran 4th in that race. So he looks a little bit one-paced, a little bit like Arden Rooney, like he's not a change gear type horse.
But I'll tell you what, up on that, but they went a 54.6 mile rate.
He's a big, strong lad. Yeah, he was really good.
It's Bathurst Skull Crown time, so busy time there in New South Wales. And the other thing I wanted to touch on, we mentioned Marcoola last week being scratched. He went to the Methven workouts and won. So yeah, he's in form, beat Destiny Jones and did that in a nice way.
I would love to see all workouts in the country recorded, even if
Methven's one track that isn't.
Even if it's rudimentary, even if it's just a guy or a girl with a camera just doing it, you know, at least it gives you some example of it, because when it's not recorded, terrible thing to say, it's like it didn't happen. Because looking at a trial or workout result on a piece of paper is totally useless.
Yes.
It just doesn't mean anything to you. So it's maybe something to think about. Maybe if Harness Racing New Zealand, all the clubs involved want to go out and buy a $500 camera, $1,000 camera, and record it at its most rudimentary level. Same with Cambridge. I think that'd be really valuable for people to have, because at least they can have something to look at.
Michael, our thoughts are with our friends in Queensland at the moment. An awful incident at Redcliffe the other day involving the Whittaker family. Gary Whittaker's a really good horseman. The mobile arm didn't retract and he and his family had their back to it standing on a platform there, and understand their daughter's not too well. So our thoughts are with them, and that's just an awful thing to happen.
It sounds like the young girl, she's only 2 years old, is improving in hospital, which is great. At this stage, the reports from last night that she's improving. Race 4, Redcliffe, Sunday night. The mobile pulls away, as it does, goes to the outside of the track. The arm didn't come back in. The family are sitting on a platform watching the race over the back of a fence, and the mobile arm hit the family, unfortunately. So mum and dad are getting a lot better. 2 little kids, one of them was injured, not badly, one was hospitalised, and the little 2-year-old girl is, it sounds like, improving. But there's been a given little page there for them, and you can get details on that on hra.org.au.
Gordon and Colin Lee had their 100th training success, of course, at Wingatui on Monday, which was terrific for them. Magnate Mara was the horse, of course, their best season 2017, where they had a couple of decent sort of horses, Sea Swift Joy being one of those who won half a dozen races. So Gordy's a fan of yours, as you know.
I would have thought they would have won more races.
No, as a combination.
Yeah,
so
as a
Gordon
combination.
trained prior to that as well.
Because Gordy would have trained a lot more winners than that.
Yeah, exactly.
He's been around for a long time. And he's one of those horse people who, when I'm looking at Southland form and I see a horse of this, and I go, okay, well, I'll better have a double look at this because the strike rate's quite good. Yeah, 1999 was their first winner. Cute Jacker as a training partnership. And Corbin Newman, who I will have a chance to catch up with, got win number 1 at the Waimate meeting. Of course, he got the business done there. He'd had a few drives. He was getting a little bit anxious, I see in the media, but at the end of the day, he got the business done there. We're going to take a short break on your box seat. And when we come back, we will have a chat to Stephen Reid about the retirement of Utmost Delight. She was a brilliant race filly in Mia herself, Victor Supreme. She had left some quality on the track, and of course her daughter, 2-time Group 1 winner Utmost Delight, was most recently retired. We're lucky to be joined online by her trainer in Stephen Reid. Reidman, a bittersweet time, I suppose, with regard to her, because I know you had some decent plans in the next season, and what she'd already produced for you on the racetrack suggested that, well, the future was pretty bright.
Yeah, afternoon, Greg and Mick, and to everyone. And yeah, that's exactly right. We always sort of took the softer options with her early on, and we always felt that like 5, 6, 7, she might really come into her own. And I think the way it was all panning out, that was probably going to be on the cards.
Stephen, she was placed at 3 in the Oaks behind Spanish Armada, but at 4 is where she really shone. She was brilliant in the Premier Mares and must have given you a lot of confidence leading into the breeders. 4-year-old mares don't have a huge record in it, so that just shows you how good she had to be to win this.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, she early on in the piece, as a 2-year-old, I had about 5 2-year-old fillies going around, and she was clearly the worst. Which is quite an interesting fact, because it just goes to show you that you just don't know. But she just kept on stepping up, and, you know, probably the fact being by Bettor's Delight, and probably also I think we need to give credit to Paula Mary Kenny, because what they did is every time she weakened off, they were the first ones to say chuck her out, and I think that really stood her in good stead for later down the track. And as I said, it's a shame that she's been cut short, because
she won 9 races. Yeah. That one there, she went 3:09, Michael, which was a tremendous time.
Yes, Reidman, she's obviously going to be worth a lot as a broodmare heading forward. So, if she was yours, who would you put it to?
Well, that's a little bit of a tricky one, Mick, because I'd probably have to say, knowing Paula Mary, I'd probably go to Captain Treacherous. Ooh. But I'm pretty sure she will go to maybe Sweet Lou, perhaps.
Yep. Mate,
honestly,
the 4-year-old Diamond, she was good enough to come from the second line, Reidman, and look, I know you're a guy who likes to analyse races. It's never comfortable when you've got to come from the second line at Cambridge, is it?
No, well, that's right. And I remember that day too, Mick, because Ricky was not confident. But all I said to him, and I think this is prevalent with these good drivers, is I just said, look, all you need to know is she's good to go. And he drove her like the best, and she was the best, and it was the perfect result, and a great effort too.
She beat Delishka, of course, on that occasion, who was placed in the ladyship at Menangle just prior to that. So it was a terrific form line. Look, we never got to see her ultimate performance, if you like. 2 Group 1 wins is outstanding, but I'm sure, given what Victor Supreme's done in the Broodmere Barn, her progeny, you'll certainly be putting your hand up for some of those, Reidman.
Just on the quiet, I will be, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know what Paula Mary's plans are. Obviously, you know, they're more inclined to sell the colts and keep the fillies, but yeah, and also too, you guys, I also trained. People may not remember, but I also trained Victor's Delight, the one before Utmost Delight, and she ended up being actually a really, really good mare. Probably she was better over in Australia, but this filly, it's just testament to me, guys, as to what a great stallion Bettor's Delight is, because was she maybe a little bit average early on, Victor Supreme, with some of her progeny, and then, of course, Bettor's Delight and Bang Bang, and yeah. Shame the career got cut short.
Yeah, Supremacy won about 9 races by Christian Cullen, and Victor's Delight, I think, won about 14. Reidman, what about an update on Star Galleria? We just turned the page on season 18-19, don't we?
I know. Well, you know what I've learned, Greg? That's all you can do. I probably was a little bit down for about 7 or 10 days, and it does play on your mind, because obviously I thought I was going to have a 2-pronged attack going into the next New Zealand Cup, and now it's one. And then, of course, he didn't race up to expectations, but he's up at Angela Purden's place. He's out for 2 months. We may send him to Cambridge to go down on the Aqua Walker. We're just going to see when he comes back, but he's going to have a good break and then a very, very long, slow preparation back, and hopefully it'll be a bit more luckier than what we were last prep.
Reidman, you bought a nice horse at the sales early doors at Karaka. I think you paid about $65,000 for him. First of all, how did he break in? And secondly, have you got him all sold?
He's all sold, yes. It's funny, Mick, those quality horses, how easy they are actually to sell. I thought he was an absolute standout. Probably a little bit lucky, I reckon, that he was early on in the day, because I thought otherwise he might have bought a lot more. Breaking in, absolutely, I love him to break in. He's not only a good-looking type, but he's actually got a brain. So very, very happy with him, and yeah, onwards and upwards, I suppose.
Hey, thanks so much for your time, Stephen. We've wrapped up a couple of really nice horses over the last couple of weeks who've been retired, and she certainly gave you some great thrills, Utmost Delight.
Oh, without a doubt, and I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Paul and Mary for, you know, they've been good supporters of me over the last couple of years, and may it continue. Yeah, absolutely. That's Stephen Reid there, and that outstanding filly and mare in Utmost Delight. Short break for us on your box seat. We're getting close to the home straight. We've got some previews to come up and find you a couple of winners. A lot of harness racing ahead. Forbury Park, 9 races there, 5:27 on Thursday night. Neville Fillies Heat and $25,000 pick 6 there. We're to Addington Raceway, good program, highlighted by the Allied Security Kia Kaha Christchurch Superstars, and $50,000 at Group 2 level there. Also, Fast Track Insurance pick 6 at Addington, 5:11, the first of 11.
Manawatu, the second day there this week, $14,000 Palmerston North Festival Gold Cup. Start time there of 5:19. Invercargill race on Saturday. 8 races there, 12:30 will be the start time on the meeting code of 7 there. And Sunday at Methven, it's actually Country Cup's final, the final of that series, the Mount Hutt Country Cup. That will be won by Airpark Flyer, who's amassed about 56 points. I'm pretty sure he can't get beaten, and the winner of that, second at the moment, is DiCaprio, gets about $6,000 plus a dress stroke, so it's certainly well worth it. And Forgotten Highway, who was going to be in the Superstars, is taking his place there at Methven. All right, let's move on to Addington, race number 8, and this is one heck of a race. The Superstars, Michael Guerin, the 36th running of this. Gee, the horses that have gone on out of this race who have won it, the likes of Lazarus, Field Marshal, Ahoka Punter, in the last few years, you've got to be a good horse to win.
So Sheriff won't be there?
Sheriff won't be starting.
So all the horses up to gate 9 go in a gate after 3. So look, the done horses have a chance to manipulate the race, one would think, if they can lead, but there's gate speed from Eamon Maguire, there's high gate speed from Jack's Legend. Really interesting race. Well,
John's going to drive Henry Hubert over Alta Maestro. I thought that was as significant as anything.
Tactics will be crucial here, because if the pressure comes from Eamon Maguire and Jack's Legend, those inside draws aren't as advantageous. If the pressure doesn't come, then all those horses on the speed get a chance to kick home in 55 seconds. Here's one of those horses, Cullen Burn, winning a very strong race last week. This is a vastly different type of field this week, Greg, but how hard they go off the gate is going to be crucial.
They went the fastest of the night over the 1980, 2:23 from memory, and he was fresh up. He did a great job. He's got good early speed. Do I think he'll win this race? Probably not, but he's going to be in the right spot to fill a top 4 spot, and he's a talented 4-year-old, and what is an incredible year. Look at that trial today, for example. Michael has Ashley Lopez, Chase Auckland turn it up and spank him, and they're not even in this, and yet we've got 4 Group 1 winners in this race. Jack's Legend is one of those, and this is the sort of form he's in.
Yeah, he's in great form, and obviously the New Zealand Cup winners in this race ran second in a Miracle Mile. It's a funny thing with the fixer. Here's Jack's Legend sitting parked and winning, which is a very different way for him to win. It's a funny thing when you think of the fixer. He ran second in a Miracle Mile, won the New Zealand Cup, and yet he still doesn't have an element of glamour about him. Like, he's in this race and no one's going, wow.
Well, normally he would be favourite. Like, a horse that's done that in his last 3 months would be favourite, regardless of what he did.
100%. Yep. And the question is, will they go forward? Will they go back at the start?
He's got the Easter Cup next week.
He might start $3.
I think he might even start further out than that.
Again, potentially even more. So it'll be really interesting to see how he goes. If Turn It Up was good enough today, and we don't have that result yet, if he was good enough today, they might go straight to the Easter Cup with him. They have the Rangiora Classic the week after, but that's going to be a really interesting dynamic of who turns up in these races. But this race will be crucial, who goes forward and who goes back, because if they pull Jack's Legend back at the start, maybe he can't win. If he blasts the gate and leads, he becomes favourite in my mind. So there's a whole lot of variables there. One horse I know who won't disappoint you is AG's White Sox.
He went great again last week.
Really good last week.
Yeah, and he was second in the Superstars last year behind More the Better. Let's have a look at the race that Enhance Carm's going to front up in. He's previously unbeaten, of course, going into this. The interesting run is Tricky Rick, who comes south and has done very little wrong. His last start winning performance, he beat Forget the Price Tag. OK, Enhance Carm might be at a different level, but you couldn't but be impressed by the way this guy's going.
He's been super. He's only had the 4 starts this campaign, and he's not an overly big horse, and he just keeps on producing really good performances. Had a good talk to John Dickey about him last night. He said that they would expect Enhance Your Calm to lead from barrier 1, and therefore they would go to its back. So that means Enhance Your Calm would probably win if it performs to its norm. I spoke to Mark Purd and he said we're very happy with him, which puts Tricky Rick on his back, and therefore he should run second.
Most logical 1-2 of the night then?
It would seem to be so. A lot of Muscle's a good horse, but I don't see him coming around those horses and beating them. Enhance Your Calm as a horse, I think if he stays sound and doesn't weaken off because he's quite a big horse, might just go bang, 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 bang and win a whole bunch of races. What's interesting is, for the jewels, there's the potential, and it's very early days, not getting carried away, that Alpha Male, the Emma Stewart trained horse, could come across. Not only would that add something to the jewels, but if a couple of stablemates came with it, that would enormously embellish the day. So Alpha Male versus Enhance Your Calm, it's a long way away yet, it's 2 months away. that would be a really cool race for Jules.
Watched some trials yesterday, trying to get a bit of a line on what's likely to unfold on Friday night at Addington Raceway, and came across this. Now, the fixer wins it, so it has ramifications towards the superstars. But have a look at Grand Chico here. I was going to make him my best bet of the week, but I know he'll start about $1.50. So that's the fixer in front. Grand Chico, have a bo peep where he is. Have a look at his last 100 metres here. He's still not as smooth in his gait as you would like, but this was ridiculous how close he got. Now, Mark Purden's sitting there nice and quietly on the fixer, but he really found the line, Grand Chico. He's still in line for a Diamond Creek Farm New Zealand Derby start. He'd obviously have to win this race to probably secure him a spot, but look, on that performance there and what he's shown us, and he has shown a fair bit, then he should just be winning this.
Yeah, he should be, and it's not a strong field. So, yep, that's as nice a tip as you'll see for this week. As you said, you could have picked him in your selection for the week, but he's going to be awfully short, as often the McGrath horses are.
Yep, what about the Woodlands runners for this week? Well, Speeding Spur will be part of that, of course, and he heads the list. Amazing Dreams got barrier 1, should be very, very hard as well, and Delight down there at Invercargill on Saturday goes round in race number 2. It's been a real battle finding a winner in the Beat the Brand competition. We've been
over the summer,
to be
last time, I think the profit the top was like $800, which is an enormous return. But this time it's just been, I've been really struggling to find the right horse some weeks. And one of the problems is the bookies open them so tight, the horses from the big barns, that it's really hard to go for them. So bottom line is we have a very even, congested
2 weeks to go.
And, yeah, anybody tips a winner is going to have some sort of chance.
A very good chance, yeah.
Sometime shortly, but it's a hard thing. I'll be honest with you. I do most of my form on Thursdays, or really
into Friday.
I get really deeply into it around Friday lunchtime. Make a lot of phone calls, watch a lot of videos. So Wednesday's not my best guess at what Friday night may be, but the show's on Wednesday. So there we go.
So here it is. I've gone with Ronald J, as has Mark Summich.
Funny enough, I almost did too. But we couldn't all go for the same
Mark McNamara's gone with the Grand Chico in the last, so he's obviously seen that trial. You've found Supreme Dominator, as has Aaron White.
Yep, and that falls into a nice enough race and enhance your car for Cameron Shaw. Look, you can take $1.10 there, $1.20, you'll probably get your money back and onwards and upwards type thing. So Linda, who had a winner last week, has gone for Amazing Dream, who probably should win it again. Maybe a multi-chance, but after what we saw last Friday, Greg, multis aren't quite as easy as you often think they are.
They're not, Michael. I think we'll look back on the Superstars as one of the form races for the latter part of season 2018-19. Gee, it's going to be a good race, and what happens early, as we saw with Alta Maestro last week, may well determine who wins that race.
It's a funny thing, like the galloping here, we've got one more Group 1 to go on Saturday week at Te Aroha. And then things, now there's Easter, there's still some good races coming around, but it starts to slow down a little bit. For the harness racing, there's just no slowdown. Like, we basically have something close enough to a major meeting every week between now and the Jewels on June the 1st. It's quite remarkable. The season used to feel a lot smaller. Now it just goes on and on and on. So, yeah, looking forward to what's going to happen over the next couple of months, and we're going to stick around with it here on the box.
All right, really appreciate your time. Hope you've enjoyed your box seat. A heck of a lot of information there for you. We'll see you in 7 days' time.